What up, world? EstablishedRich coming right back at you. And this Karmelo Anthony case just took a turn that could open the door to his freedom or put him in a worse position than he was in before. Because Karmelo was asking for a new trial. But now we're learning about all the evidence the first jury never heard. And let's keep it real. Some of it helps his defense's claim. But some of it makes Karmelo look very, very bad.
We are following some breaking news out of Texas, where a judge has granted a request to recuse the judge involved in the Karmelo Anthony trial. A little bit more information here from our Fox 4 Dallas reporter, Stephen Dial, who was inside the courtroom when this decision was announced, stating that a Collin County judge has granted a request to recuse Karmelo Anthony, trial judge, from any further appeal proceedings. A new legal team for Anthony said days after the verdict, Judge Roach showed bias. Now, a new judge will be assigned to hear a motion for a new trial.
The defense won that round. Judge John Roach was removed from handling Karmelo's motion for a new trial after the defense argued that his public comments created a serious question about whether he could still be impartial. And I understand that argument. Once you're the judge and you start sitting down with the news defending the verdict, how are you supposed to turn around and fairly decide whether that defendant deserves a new trial?
A clip from an interview that Judge Roach, that you were just talking about, Nicole, did 2 days after Anthony was found guilty of first-degree murder, was played for the court to hear. Now, in that clip, Judge Roach agreed that the jury, quote, got it right. The Anthony defense team, his new defense team, says Judge Roach compromised his impartiality during that very interview. Here's what it sounded like for supporters of Karmelo Anthony after today's decision. Now, Roach has defended those restrictions that he initially put in place when it comes to media, cameras, and audio, in a written statement saying the overwhelming focus on my ruling regarding the media in the courtroom was to protect the process.
Now you see why the defense wanted him gone. Whether you agree with the verdict or not, that interview was unnecessary. A judge's rulings are supposed to speak through the courtroom record, not a television package. The good news for Karmelo is that retired Judge Michael Chitty is now considering the motion. But removing Judge Roach don't automatically erase the conviction. And it does not automatically mean Karmelo will get a new trial. The new judge still has to decide whether the problem the defense is raising were serious enough to deny Karmelo a fair process. And that brings us to what the first jury did not hear.
Now, there's in this motion for a new trial, the background reports are being released, and the defense is going first, releasing 20 pages now of Austin Metcalf's behavioral history. Karmelo Anthony was dressed in a suit and tie for this morning's hearing, which began with the defense arguing that efforts by the trial judge and prosecutors to combat threats and deal with disruptions actually prevented Anthony from getting an open and fair trial. But bombshell testimony came this afternoon from Anthony's trial attorney, Mike Howard, about Austin Metcalf's background report that was never presented to the jury. CBS News Texas has also learned new details about Austin Metcalf's background. Metcalf and his brother Hunter were once caught spray painting graffiti, including KKK Kill All Blacks and Heil Hitler, along with the N-word, and were sentenced to 12 months of juvenile probation. Records reveal they reportedly told authorities, "We did some dumb stuff. We did some vandalism."
This is the part that could help Karmelo's defense. The hearing has exposed evidence and allegations about Austin Metcalf's history, including fights, threats, bullying, and racist comments. And if you arguing about self-defense, the history of the person you say you feared can matter. It may help explain why the confrontation felt so dangerous, especially if Karmelo knew about his history before this happened. But we also have to be precise. Something being ugly or disturbing does not automatically make it legally relevant, and it does not automatically justify what happened under that tent. The question is still what happened during that confrontation and what Karmelo reasonably believed in that moment.
There are several documented instances of Austin using racial slurs in school, and in 2023, Austin was accused of bullying a black student in class. In 2018, while still in elementary school, Austin and his brother were accused of bullying and assaulting a female, which led to his arrest. During an argument in 2024 with another female student, Austin allegedly knocked her to the ground and punched her in the stomach. He was also kicked out of a football game and texted someone later, "I was about to beat the expletive out of those kids." At a previous track meet, when another student alerted Austin that someone not on their team, quote, "behind our bench was talking wild," Austin reportedly replied, "Kill that MF." During the 2023-2024 school year, he received in-school suspension twice. School disciplinary records from April 2022 to May 2024 reveal that Austin reportedly called a teacher the B word and used profanity. He told a school official that he couldn't control it and wasn't aware that it was coming out of his mouth. In 2024, on at least 5 occasions, Austin saw a counselor regarding his anger and rage during a football game. In 2021, he got banned from attending basketball games for a season after yelling profanity at a player. Metcalf also got suspended after he and another student were talking about bringing a gun to school the following day.
Now, this information does change the public perception of Austin. Before this hearing, a lot of people were presenting him as a completely innocent kid who had never been involved in anything. The record being discussed now makes the situation more complicated than that. But we cannot go from one extreme to the other. We cannot say Austin was perfect, and we also cannot say that just because he bullied people or used racist language, his death somehow doesn't matter. He was 17 years old. His family lost him. That loss is real regardless of what his juvenile record says. At the same time, if information was legally admissible and important to a legitimate self-defense claim, then the jury should have been allowed to consider it. Fairness doesn't mean protecting one side's image. Fairness means the jury getting the evidence the law says it's allowed to see.
I mean, if they want to view it as a win, that's okay. They have every right to view it as a win. I mean, technically, yes, they got the judge recused. Okay. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Let's see if they're still celebrating tomorrow, because if he's granted a new trial, he could get more years. I have no idea what the defense is going to throw up for their reasons for a new trial. To me, it still doesn't matter. It doesn't change the facts. The facts are the facts. We had 35 witnesses last time. We only had to use 21. We have a video. We have a confession. I don't know where there's this big bombshell thing that's going to change the case. And, you know, if it was that important, it would have came up the first time. So let's just stick to the facts of what happened that day underneath the tent. For me, things like this do not occupy my time or my thoughts. Mm-hmm. My thoughts are on this foundation. I'm looking at going forward. How do I save lives? How do I prevent this from any parent ever feeling this pain? It is the deepest, worst pain any human being could ever live through. How do I prevent it? So I'm going to ask everyone's help. Support Austin Metcalf Foundation so your kid comes home alive from school. I'm out here to save lives, and I don't care what color your skin is. I judge you by your character, not by the color of your skin. And there's what I want to tell to everybody, and I want to ask this, and I'll ask you. You're either part of the problem in today's world, or you're part of the solution in today's world. What side do you think you're on?
I understand where Austin's father is coming from. That's his son. And he sat through that trial. The jury heard the evidence presented to them, rejected Karmelo's self-defense claim, convicted him of murder, and sentenced him to 35 years. So from his perspective, changing the judge don't change what happened to his son. But legally, we still have to separate the outcome from the process. A person can believe the jury reached the right verdict and still question whether the trial was conducted properly. That's why the defense is talking about off-the-record meetings. Karmelo not being present for certain discussions. Allegations have to be taken seriously without pretending they automatically prove Karmelo is innocent. But here's where this gets dangerous for Karmelo. The same door that lets Austin's history into the conversation also opens the door for Karmelo's history.
Yeah, John, today we are hearing a lot of new evidence that was never made public during the trial, including details of what investigators found on Karmelo Anthony's phone and why it is that they believe he took a knife to this track meet last year in April. During opening statements, prosecutors revealed Anthony had a documented pattern of obsession with knives and guns. In one text message, Anthony allegedly fantasized about stabbing someone, writing, "When I stab somebody, I'm gonna lick their blood off the blade."
I gotta be real, those text messages are damaging. There is no responsible way to discuss this case and just skip over that because it does not fit the version somebody wants to believe. Prosecutors say Karmelo sent messages about stabbing somebody and licking blood off the blade. They also presented allegations that he threatened his girlfriend, had been reported for stalking behavior that morning, and sent a message to her saying he was low-key on the verge. Now, a text message is not proof that a person planned a particular incident. Young people say reckless and stupid things all the time. But come on, dog. When the case involves a knife, and then the jury sees messages from the defendant talking about stabbing somebody and licking blood off the blade, you can't act like that ain't gonna hit hard. That is the kind of evidence a prosecutor will put on the big screen. And this is where that so-called gentleman's agreement becomes important. The prosecution and the original defense agreed to keep damaging character evidence about Karmelo and Austin out of the case. The idea was to keep the trial focused on what happened under that tent and prevent it from turning into a racial circus. But Karmelo's new attorneys say that agreement came together too late, undercut the strategy, and helped keep Karmelo from testifying.
Prosecutors say they also have numerous examples of Anthony's desire to start fights and to be in fights, and they argue that's what he went to the track meet to do that day. The reason none of that came out at trial is that the defense and prosecution had what they're describing as a gentleman's agreement, an off-the-record understanding that neither side would go into character evidence, including allegations of violence and bullying by Austin Metcalf. Instead, both sides would focus on what happened under the tent the day of the stabbing. The defense now argues that Anthony chose not to testify in his own defense because at the last minute of the trial, prosecutors reversed course and told them if Anthony takes the stand, it would violate their agreement and open the door to all of those character issues being brought out. That agreement is a key part of the defense's argument as to why it is that Anthony deserves a new trial. And that's something we're going to continue to hear a lot more about through the rest of today and possibly into tomorrow. John?
I would assume if he gets a new trial, that all of the stuff that was presented in court today would probably be admissible, yeah?
Yeah, it absolutely. Prosecutors have already said that's part of the reason both sides agreed to this deal is because they didn't want to further enrage this public debate that was happening outside, where this was really, they felt, throwing gas onto an already big fire if they brought out a lot of these character attacks. Of course, going forward to the next trial, that agreement would not be in place, and all of this would be fair game. Prosecutors have said they would have brought all of this up if it weren't for that agreement.
Well, it's all out there now. Garrett Tenney for us in McKinney. Thanks, Garrett.
This is the gamble. The original defense may have kept Austin's history away from the jury, but they also kept the information about Karmelo away from the jury too. So if Karmelo gets a new trial and both sides come in with their gloves off, his lawyers may be able to present Austin as aggressive, troubled, and racist. But the state may present Karmelo as somebody who was fixated on knives, violence, and threats before he ever stepped under that tent. And that goes directly to the question a new jury would be asking. Was this a scared young man reacting in self-defense? Or was this somebody whose mind was already moving in a dangerous direction? That don't settle the case by itself. It don't erase Austin's conduct, and it don't mean Karmelo's self-defense claim should be ignored. But it makes the second trial more dangerous than people realize. Karmelo currently has a 35-year sentence. If a new jury convicts him again and is allowed to include this additional evidence, he could face a sentence higher than 35 years, potentially a life sentence. That don't mean life would automatically happen, and it don't mean every piece of this material is automatically admitted. The judge will still have to rule on what is allowed in, but the risk is real. A new trial means another jury, another verdict, and potentially another punishment decision.
The motion for a new trial. So how do you think it went?
It's mixed feelings.
Yeah.
Everything we've noticed a lot of things about the boys that wasn't sent out to the public. You agree? Mm-hmm. Based on what was told, the narrative, it hurt us, man. It just made us. It's right now. I'm still It was so much at that time.
Yeah, it was a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Damn, the dude had a penchant for fighting, for violence.
Yes.
Very, very
Never
violent.
put out there.
Yeah, like smacking on his friends or so-called friends, smacking on
Wordings he was using.
choking his own mama.
Yeah, that threw me off.
know?
I mean, your mama? I said, man, you got to be different.
Threatening to slap his dad and he don't do nothing. And this kid right here, like he was a real problem.
I understand why Karmelo's parents are focused on what came out about Austin. They believe their son didn't receive a fair trial. And this information supports part of the story they have been telling about Austin's behavior. But you got to be honest about both sides. You can't hold up every report about Austin as if it's proof of who he was, then dismiss every message from Karmelo as if it means nothing. That's not how credibility works. If character evidence matters when it helps your side, then you have to acknowledge the damage when similar evidence hurts your side. And that is my biggest concern for his family. They may win the argument that Karmelo's original trial was flawed. They may even win a new trial. But winning a new trial is not the same thing as winning the new trial. The defense will get another chance to explain Karmelo's fear and put Austin's history before the jury if the evidence is allowed. But the prosecution will get another chance too. This time, they may have a much darker picture to paint of Karmelo. So the question is not whether Karmelo deserves a new trial. The question is whether this new defense team believes they can take all the evidence, put it in front of 12 new people, and walk Karmelo out of that courtroom with something better than 35 years. Because if they wrong, this young man could trade a bad situation for an even worse one. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe. Established Rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.